Good morning. How are you folks? Welcome to the month of December and today's video. I wanted to give a brief shout out to those of you that are hanging in there. We've got a lot that is going on. Not so much is being public, but the things that are being public are very, very obvious. So I want to make sure we put some attention to that. And also prepare your hearts and minds for what's coming. We do indeed live in a world that is influenced very much by ancient Babylon, and a lot of the holidays are part of that. So with that, let's talk about seasoned greetings. And yes, I do mean seasoned. So seasoned because you're being prepared for the big destruction. What do we mean by that? Well, Scripture says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. What knowledge are we pointing to when we read that? It's the knowledge of the instructions found in Scripture of how to lead your life as well as a day-to-day walk with the Messiah. You'll find those instructions in the first 5 books of the Bible. It's known as the Torah in the Hebrew or Jewish sect, but it is applicable both to those of us that are grafted in, which we read about in the book of John, as well as those that were part of the original vine and not grafted in. So it's important that as we are grafted in, we learn the ways of our master Yeshua and learn what it is he expects from us. We have all these holidays coming up, but you need to realize if you do your research, you'll find that Christmas, and I used it with an X because it has nothing to do with the Messiah, is Saturnalia, which is a winter solstice celebration. History shows shepherds were in the fields with their flocks, but that's not possible in the month of December. So anyone who's been to Israel knows that isn't that time. It's during the summer months, July, August, September, where they're in the fields with their flocks. So the reality is the Messiah was born on or around August, September timeframe during a feast that we typically refer to as Sukkot. And that being he came and tabernacled or put on the tent of a human body while he was with us. And that was just over 2,000 years ago. I saw an interesting tweet this morning that I thought I would at least call out, and it attributed their righteousness to the Messiah's work, but that's incomplete. We're told by Paul, Peter, and others to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, as well as our acts of faith will be how righteousness is measured to us. That's the same thing Abraham's measured by. You read about that in the book of Hebrews. Our Messiah redeemed us with his blood so that we could live a righteous life. And that's based on faith-based actions. That's our goal. It's not a one-and-done prayer and then our Messiah gives us righteousness just like that. But we need to execute and walk the instructions, the Torah, and that life pursuing the path our Messiah gave us will attribute those actions in faith as righteousness. So don't dismiss, because the churches teach this, they teach the law has been abolished, and nowhere in Scripture does it say that the Torah, the law, has been abolished. Instead, it says none of that goes away until heaven and earth goes away. And so all of it exists to the very end. I know this message won't digest for everybody because not everybody is a sheep for the shepherd. There are goats amidst the herd who will insist on churchianity and the practices of the apostate church. That's to be expected. Even Yeshua said he will separate the goats from the sheep. Notice it's not the other way around. He also said once everyone is harvested, the angels will come down, put in their sickle and harvest. He will remove the weeds, the tares, from the wheat. Again, notice that it's those that are not obedient and not following the Messiah that get removed. That's something for another discussion, because I know there's a lot of interesting beliefs on what Christians call the rapture, which you find nowhere in Scripture. You find the catching away in the Greek words, but you don't find rapturos, which has to deal with the rapture. So keep that in mind, that in both of these examples, and there's others, he removes the evil from the world and the good is left. So keep that in mind, and it's food for thought. Where are you? Are you going to be removed suddenly? And remember, it says two people were at the mill threshing, and suddenly one's removed. Think about that. Is that the way it's going to happen? The evil gets removed and the righteous remain? Who knows? A study on that would be very, very useful. I know that there's a lot of other things that need to occur as well. So keep that in mind. I follow the Messiah, who is and always was Hebrew, crossed over. He wore tzitzit, and if you don't know what that is, you need to go read the book of Leviticus. He ate kosher, that's Leviticus chapter 11, celebrated the feast, that's Leviticus chapter 23, kept the Sabbath, that was given to us in Exodus, restated in Leviticus, and then again restated in Deuteronomy. He obeyed the Torah, that's the first 5 books of Scripture, and he taught others to walk as he walked. He said, follow me. So for anyone to say that's been done away, that is what Paul says. They are preaching another gospel. Do not even touch that. So be aware. Many people will come and say that Yeshua is the Messiah, and they're right. But then they teach you things that will take you into disobedience. So be very careful. So here's some further news we should pay attention to, and this is more on the state of our world. It's interesting. More and more of this is coming out. Share with as many as possible and ensure they start to see. And just a reminder, so that we get popped up in the YouTube algorithm, please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the podcast. It's important to get this in front of more people, and we had some great visibility last week. So your likes and your subscriptions help elevate this in the algorithm. So thank you again for doing that. So here's some things to be aware of. Let's start, first of all, with what's going on with the masks. So during the era of slavery, control and humiliation were used to manipulate the subjects. For those obeying the mask mandates, keep in mind, this is not about health. It's all about subjugation. The CDC and Department of Health have both stated that masks are ineffective for any of this. So ask yourselves, why are they continuing to push this narrative? So you can click through on the article. It'll take you to the original tweet and some other links. The other thing to look at here is modern psychology explains that without face, we don't exist as independent beings. The child looks in the mirror between the ages of 2 and 3 and is discovered as an independent being. The mask is the beginning of deleting your individuality. If you don't know history, you're condemned to repeat it. So again, this is what they did to slaves back in the day. So do keep this in mind. This is one of the reasons they do this. There are those that are promoting the greatness and the reset, but we need to deal with the here and now. So help your neighbors and those that are now getting the boot for boosters. They will indeed be the next ones to help. We already know, based on doctors' reviews, that the more you compound this particular solution into your system, the higher the likelihood of a stroke, heart attack, or other health issues. This is not a cure. It's not a prophylactic. It's a mass extinction event. And we already have doctors on record saying this is a DNA altering substance. That's why it's called RNA. So visit our other page to learn about the formulations, the events, and the documented evidence about that. And you can click through here and it will take you to that particular page. On that page, you will see all the different articles, videos, etc. There's numbers, statistics from all the different sites. So literally, this is the information you want if you're struggling with making a decision, or you're struggling with the details that others are giving you. You can point them to this, and you can actually use the data for your own foundations. Focus on what you know and what you see. Don't believe the nonsense. Anyone promoting narratives insisting you take their word for it need to be muted. You're never going to get that here. You're always going to be encouraged to go do your research. We do provide links so you can help with that. Again, you are an adult, hopefully. So get out there and study. Anyone that discourages questions, those folks are people that I would struggle with. So remember, questions is how we learn. So thank you, Sandy. The 5 most used words over the coming months will be, we tried to tell you. This is absolutely true. There's a bunch of things coming up and people are not going to be prepared. So here's a great example of people that have had enough. This is out in New York State.
Arden Avenue and Hapland.
To my friends on the South Shore, you're welcome.
Let's go, Brandon.
As you can tell, people are starting to have enough and they've got the guts to show it. So keep that in mind. You have to ask yourself, what am I seeing? And don't take it at face value. Here's another great example. Notice the faces don't move. So it was pointed out by one of our followers that this could indeed be masks. And I would agree. The other thing to keep in mind, last week we demonstrated what was possible. If that doesn't creep you out, I don't know what does. So the fact that we've now got masks, robotics, etc., you have to ask yourself, what is it I'm actually seeing? And then investigate. Don't let people try and fool you by telling you it's one thing or another. Do your research. What you are seeing is the end of all generations and the ushering in of the man of destruction to come. This is absolutely true. You saw the last queen. We keep hearing rumors that she's gone, or at least circling the drain. We saw the very last pope. We've been told that he's the last pope in the line. We were told by our 45 this is not just another 4-year election, and he actually ended all the wars under his administration. So remember what I said earlier about removing evil from the world. That is indeed a possibility of what is preparing to happen. So keep that in mind. And remember, God is not deceived. You can pretend to be good, and God knows your heart, and he's not going to play games with you by deception. So keep that in mind. He is going to remove evil from the world, and he will do it in his way, in his time. So keep that in mind and walk the walk that our Messiah called us to do. If you want to know more about what's coming, there's a great resource, and it was written as a fictional account over 110 years ago, and it tells the tale of the last president quite well. I read it about a year ago, and it's actually available on audiobooks on YouTube. And there are 3 books in the series. This is book 2, and it's called The Last President, or 1900. And actually, what's interesting is book 3 is The Adventures of Baron Trump. You heard that right. The Adventures of Baron Trump. So do take some time and read them. I suspect you're going to see them play out in real life very shortly. Now, I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it works. But the fact that these guys were able to predict, remember, it was published in 1896, so almost 125 years ago, then the reality is you're going to see some of this play out if this is actually true. So do take some time and investigate. Ultimately, you have to question everything. Learn that what you see is not necessarily what it is. That includes your religious leaders as well as politicians, movie stars, royalty. All of this is suspect. So do your own diligence, do your own research. Feel free to ask questions out on Twitter or Telegram, and we'll be happy to help you. Most of all, walk in peace. Remember, we're called to be humble and at peace with all people. Shalom.